My name is Gordon H McIntyre. Gordon, Gordon, Heath, Heath, McIntyre, capital M, small c, capital INTYRE.
Great. And what is your birthday?
28th of January 1931.
So you are now 88?
Yep. Yes.
You look pretty good, sir. I mean it.
That's the exercise we had in 1951.
In Korea? War exercise?
Oh, yes.
Oh, okay. I'm looking forward to hear about it. But where were you born?
In Wanganui.
Could you spell it?
Capital W, A-N-G.
A-N-G.
U-N-I-E.
U-N-I-E.
No, wasn't it Wanganui?
They've changed the spelling.
Wanganui.
Wanganui now.
W-H-A-N-G-A.
G-A.
N-U-I.
N-U-I. W-A-N-G-A-N-U-I.
Yeah.
H.
W-H, yep.
W-H-A-N-G-A-N-U-I.
Pronounced
Wanganui.
Wanganui.
All right. So tell me about your family when you were growing up. Your parents and your siblings, please.
Well, my mother was born in England. My father was born in the north of Ireland of Scottish parents.
Scottish. And what about your siblings, your brothers and sisters?
I have a brother who has just recently died,
Oh.
and I have 3 sisters.
So you are the eldest?
I am the older.
Oh. And tell me about the school you went through there.
Well, I went to a multitude of schools at Wanganui and Napier, Taradale, and in Warren.
And so when did you finish your school, everything? When was it?
It would be 1947, I think, but I carried on with Correspondence School.
1946?
It was the actual physical school. After that, it was Correspondence.
What is Correspondence School?
Correspondence School was a great foundation. It's where they did your secondary education by mail, and they used to have visiting teachers.
Uh-huh.
That was a great setup.
What did you learn from them?
Well, I think they made
This is just regular course?
Oh, yes, English,
Mm-hmm.
history, mathematics, chemistry.
Okay. And did you learn anything about Korea in that school?
No, we didn't.
No, you didn't. So did you know where Korea was?
Yes.
Oh, how?
Well, I was always keen on geography.
Yes. So you looked at it?
Not at
The
that
map.
time. Yes, but I knew it was hanging on the left-hand side of Japan. If you're looking down on it, yeah.
So you have to mention Japan to talk about Korea.
Well, I spent some time in Japan, which was very educational.
Educational, right. But Korea was not really kind of subject that people knew at the
yes,
time.
it was. Japan was a staging point for us to be shipped down to by train to a port called Sasebo,
yes.
and we got on a ferry through mine-infested waters, and we ended at a place which we always called Busan.
Busan.
They call it now Busan.
Yeah, right. When did you arrive in Busan?
That would have been in late probably August, September, probably late July, October, 1951.
So 1951 October.
Say that, yes, that'll be approximately correct.
Now, how did Busan look to you? The people, the city, housing, everything, smell. Just be honest and tell me, what did you see? What did you feel? What did you smell?
Well, first when we came off the ship, we were mesmerised because we were met by an American Dixie band.
Ah, welcoming band. Yeah.
Yeah, and there were a lot of Korean labourers on the wharf of coolie stature, you know, they were just labourers. And of course the perimeter around Busan had been very, very closely defended, but the troops had moved back and they were just north of the 38th parallel, that's Seoul. Yes, we were only there for a few hours. And then
Only few hours.
a few hours, yeah. And then we were put on this train, which was towed by, I think it was 2 GMC trucks with railway wheels on them, with multiple stops on the way through to Seoul.
So,
Yeah.
but you didn't stay there long either, right?
No, we were just, the trip up, the line was very, very interesting. And being very young, I think I was only about early 20s. The train would stop, multiple stops along the way, and a guy would get out with a rolled up piece of newspaper, wrap it up on the platform. Another guy would come out with sticks of wood, and another guy would come out with a metal triangle, another guy would come out with a billy of water. So they'd light a fire to make a cup of tea. But they never got it going because everybody had to get back on the train and carry on.
Yeah.
So that was a long train, but they got the fire going and the billy boiling at a place called Seoul.
Seoul.
And of course then, as soon as they're getting ready for the cup of tea, the troop trucks came along to take us away, so they never had the cup of tea.
So no tea time.
Oh, it was no tea.
Okay. But did you see anything in Seoul when you
Yes.
stopped there? Tell me about those details, because as I mentioned, this interview will be checked out by the young children.
It was probably what was left of probably one of the most beautiful cities in the world.
Really?
Yes, and I'm not joking. The streets were very, very wide because we went right through the heart of Seoul. The buildings, the fronts were blown out. That took a shocking hammering from
Bombing.
that, bearing in mind it had been invaded and liberated twice.
Yep.
And then we had got onto the trucks. It was in September. It would have been in September. Of course, things were very, very hot and the roads were very, very dusty. But I can remember we went across the Han River, is it Han? And on the left-hand side going out was this big church. Concrete, not concrete, brick church. I believe it was St John's Anglican Church. There was a cathedral for that district, but you might correct me there. And it sustained very little damage. So we carried on, and the dust was terrible. We had handkerchiefs wrapped around our places, and we were just covered in this browny, reedy brown clay dust, and we just caked in it. And then we disembarked at an English base, Fort George.
So when you see this completely destroyed city with a few buildings left standing,
Yeah,
what were you thinking?
terrible. I'd seen documentaries of Britain and Germany and places like that, and I thought, oh, it should never happen again to anybody. But seeing Seoul emphasised that, and I'd hate it to happen to anybody. It was terrible.
So from Seoul, where did you go?
We crossed the Injim, and just a little bit along the way, we pulled in at this English signals headquarters called, and they had other ancillaries there as well, because I was in the signal section. And we were housed there for a little while, and I got to know quite a few people, and then I was delegated to be this is October's coming up.
Mm-hmm.
I was delegated or sent forward to go up to an English mortar battery to look after their signals because their numbers of troops had been sadly diminished. So I was just there to help fill a gap.
Mm.
But that particular night that went up will be mesmerised me. I can see it now. The skyline was just pulsating light. You could read a newspaper with it. Just continuous.
Bombing.
No, it was artillery fire.
Right, so artillery, yes,
Yeah,
fire.
yeah, both sides.
Mm-hmm.
And there was hammer and tongs going on. And
That's how severe that was.
Hmm?
Artillery fire, that all night.
all night, incessant, just continuous rolling, thunderous noise. But a young guy, you just say, oh, well, this is it. This is adventure.
Were you scared?
No, for some strange reason, I wasn't.
See, that's the youngness.
Yes.
Yeah.
We went to a forward slope going down, and I can see on the side of the valley where the bright lights coming up with these poles with great big 44-gallon drums on them, and these drums had full of napalm,
Oh.
which was preset because they thought the Chinese would activate a breakthrough. Pardon me. And on the left-hand side going down the hill, there was a forward field hospital by the Canadians, and when I pulled into the headquarters for this mortar battery, I was introduced, and then I was taken to my barracks, and then the shelling started, and I was all dressed up in my army best, and they allocated me a bed, so I sat down there, and the shelling got louder and louder and louder, and there was English people there. They were all dressed up, all nice, ready to go as if they were, and I couldn't believe why. These guys were so closely shaven, so clean, and nice, seemingly new uniforms. There were about 8 or 9 of them, and then the shelling got closer, and I thought, I'm not going to stay sitting up. And so I ducked and I got down and lay down on the floor. When I looked up, there wasn't an Englishman in sight. They'd done their bit, they were being sent home the next day.
Oh, so they are ready to go back home.
Yeah, so
that's why they fully dressed up.
Oh, they were dressed up really well. So when I got up in the morning and had a look around outside our command post, which was a truck with radios and maps, what we call TECAC boards, on an unexploded shell, just outside. The rotating band was off, the back was out of it and was split. Had that really detonated and gone off, it would have taken out that truck and me as well, and quite a few others. So anyway, that was my introduction to...
What an introduction, right?
it was really. And then, because that was the commencement of the Battle of Han. It was over, you would know it, Han. It's quite a prominent battle that the British 28th Brigade was under. It comprised Australians, our artillery, 16th Field Regiment, which, just off the record from memory, at the Battle of Kapiong, I was not there, but the guy who ended up being a jeep driver for me, when I was doing signals work.
So you were a radio operator?
Yep. Oh no, I was not a radio operator, I was a radio serviceman.
So what does that mean?
That means that if they were out of commission or needed servicing, I was the guy to fix them.
Okay.
And then if they were out of my control, they would be BLR'd, which was beyond local repaired, so they went onto a truck down to Fort George for.
And what about unit? What unit you were in?
I was in the 1st Commonwealth Div 6 Regiment.
I'm sorry?
1st Commonwealth.
1st Commonwealth, yes.
Divisional Signals Regiment.
Okay. And you don't have any company or like that, right?
No, that is it.
Okay.
But I was sent to a British unit,
Yeah.
and I was there for a while.
How was it to work with a British unit?
No problem.
No problem?
They're pretty good guys.
And you are Scottish and from...
I'm a mixture.
Yeah, yeah. You didn't have any problem. And so what was your rank at the time?
My rank in the Korean Army, in the
Korean
New Zealand
War,
Army
yeah.
During the Korean War was a signalman, which is equivalent to a private.
Private. So you were pretty low.
I was at the lowest echelons.
So tell me about the everyday routines. You know, what time do you wake up and what do you eat? Where did you go? Where do you take a shower? I know you haven't taken a shower a long time. Things like that. Tell me. And what did you do actually to do your job?
Well, my job comprised of servicing electronic radios, telephones, electric motors for charging batteries, like the batteries for the 19 sets, which comprised of two big 6-volt batteries weighing about just under 70 kilos each. So they were quite heavy, and they'd take a day to charge each. So there'd be a continuous rotation of those batteries. That was one of my duties. That was the primary one, was maintenance and to see that was done. But I also took an interest in the job next door to me and made sure that I knew somebody else's job as well in case of.
What was it?
Well, I used to be very keen on the artillery, very keen.
So, did you do some working with the artillery?
Yes, when I got back to the New Zealanders.
Oh.
But in the British Army, no.
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 And do you remember where you were with the British? Was it in Imjin area, right?
Yes, it was. Imjin was behind us.
Yes. And so Little Gibraltar, does it ring the bell to you? Little Gibraltar.
I've heard of it, but I couldn't.
You were
tell
not
where.
there.
No. This hill that I was on was, I think the designated was 218. 218.
Okay.
And that was a very prominent feature. I'm not sure about the military name for it, but I know the district was Miriam.
Miriam, yeah.
In that district there, and when I got there, we were confronted by the Chinese.
Chinese. So
Yeah.
your enemy was Chinese, not North Korean. Were they
The
mixed
North
up there?
Korean army was pretty defunct.
Spread.
It
Yeah.
was pretty much non-existent.
Non-existent.
That's to our the North Korean army was pretty well decimated at the Battle of Kapyong
Yes.
from our side.
Yeah.
But this one, it was consistent and it was very heavy fighting over a period of about 5 or 6 days, non-stop.
Your job duty, was it in the front line area or rear in the back?
Not very far back.
Not very far back, but not in the far front.
Not in the firing line itself, no. Probably about 800 metres to 1,000 metres behind the front
That's
line.
it?
Yeah.
Wow.
Lived there for quite a while.
Were there any dangerous moment that you might have lost your life?
I can't honestly answer that.
Hmm.
And that's been pretty straight up. I couldn't honestly answer that because it was pretty horrendous. But I know during that battle of, it was Miriam Han, it was very touch and go. The second or third nights that I was there, we had what they call a stand to, which was everybody had to get up, load their trucks ready to move on out.
Oh.
So, but the Australian regiment held together very, very well. There was a South Korean regiment there, and don't forget that had been very, very badly mauled before we got there, and they were in the formative stages again. Yeah, that's pretty much about what I can remember about that, but it was continuous, non-stop.
What were you thinking? Did you say to yourself, what the hell am I doing here?
To be honest, I was
Yeah.
too busy.
Yeah.
Yeah. We used to have lots of little catchphrases, but they're not appropriate at the moment.
So looking back all those years, you were welcomed by the artillery fire during the day and night, and you were in that battle. And
That was not a welcome.
what were you thinking? I mean, looking back all those years, why do you think that it happened to you? Why were you there? And what's Korea now to you?
Korea to me is very important. I really honestly would like to go back.
Yes, please.
Yeah, I would like to.
Oh, you mean you want to go back to Korea?
And have a look around here.
You never been back to Korea?
Oh, yes, I have.
You've been.
Yeah, I loved it.
So when did you go back?
About 2008.
And when you went back, and you must seen Seoul, right? And the area in Imjin area.
Yep, we went to the gym.
Tell me, what did you see, and what was the difference between the Korea you saw in 1951 and 2008?
You want me to be honest?
Yeah.
I saw miracles.
You don't have to be honest to tell me.
But that's a fact. The place is beautiful. That is down the main street, and that big square in the centre of town where the people go out and move around and see the police on roller skates. They were fast. But you go off the side streets, it was just like any other town. You asked earlier on about the smells. What did I feel? Well, when we went down to Busan.
Yeah.
And Kapyong. We went to Kapyong. My wife, who's recently died, said, "What's
Sorry
this?"
to hear that.
Yes. What's that smell? I said, "Well, you really don't want to know, but it's fertilizer."
Yeah, right.
And it was a terrible smell. And of course, they have open sewers in Busan. And you're walking across these grates, and the smell is not nice. That has not advanced since.
That's what we call honeypot.
Well, I know what the honey cart is.
Yeah. It's a human waste. We used to use it as a fertilizer.
I know that.
Yeah.
It's very rich in nitrogen.
Yeah.
So
So you didn't like the smell, but when
you got used to it.
Yeah, right. And when you go back to Korea 2008,
Yeah.
you didn't smell that.
And Seoul, no.
No.
Busan, yes.
Yes, again?
Yeah.
2008?
Yes.
You kidding me?
No.
Huh.
You get off the railway station, you go into...
You mean in 2008?
Yeah, you'll see that there are places in Japan which we were there, that not this recently, but before they had open sewers too, but they're huge.
So, see, that's the whole thing. You are the living witness that can tell all the people, especially young generation, including your daughter, that the Korea transformed from honeypot to one of the biggest
Economies of the world.
economy in the world. Do you know the rank of Korean economy now?
Oh, it's about second or third.
Nah, that's too much. It's the 11th largest economy in the world. The South Korea.
Yeah.
It's a very small country, but we have almost 10 times of population that you have.
But just think of the quantity of baby food we could send over there.
Yeah.
Probably the best in the world.
Yeah. Oh, that's a very good point.
Yeah. So,
And-
that, you know, I've got to stick up for my country, you know.
And yeah. About 6,000 New Zealand soldiers were there, right, during the war?
Oh, but now I've got to mention that. The first ones that went were artillery. I think there were about 900 men that went. 1,000 were called volunteers, called for, of which they needed 1,000, 10,000 people volunteered. So the cream of the cream went to Korea first. And I was on about the second intake.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you are the living witness of these changes, right?
Yes.
From nothing to very successful economy and democratic society.
Yes.
But we are still divided by, the 38 parallel. Still North Korea, communist country.
Yeah.
We are the free capitalist. What do you think about this division?
I think, now you're going to ask me to be honest, aren't you?
Yeah, please.
Well, I think in my own heart we were sold out, the Koreans and all of us.
Yeah.
We were sold out by the United Nations and the president at the time, I think it was President Truman.
Yes.
He called a halt and a ceasefire.
Yeah.
That ceasefire should never have happened. We should have finished what we went there to do, and we would have had a united Korea.
Yes.
Now, I believe that in my heart. And I think you do quietly too.
General MacArthur was fired by the President Truman because of that.
He wanted to put in an atomic bomb,
Yeah.
but he was the most successful
General.
that America had in the Pacific. Who was the leader in the Japanese encounter?
Right.
Who liberated Incheon? You had to be a good man to do that.
Right.
And we all respected General MacArthur. And you go to Seoul now, you go to Incheon, you see the statues to the man.
Yes.
He's almost godlike in stature.
Exactly. But despite of such good transformation,
Yeah.
Korean War is still known as forgotten war.
Sadly, yes, because to my mind it's as equal and as important as the First World War in Gallipoli when we fought those. One of the ironical things was before that encounter at Kapyong, the New Zealanders, I'm not sure, yes, they were there, the Australians, and they're organising a reunion with the Turkish outfit, the Great Mountains.
Yes.
Now, and don't forget the Turks were our opponents in the First World War.
Yeah.
And then the Battle of Kapyong took place.
Yeah.
So everybody was all in the mix.
What was the most difficult thing during your service in Korea? If I ask you to pinpoint among many, what is it?
There's nothing really, there were difficult things, but to say there was one thing most difficult, it's hard to really pinpoint. As I said, we were all volunteers, and to some extent it was an adventure, but it was not a good adventure. Just out of interest, though, the New Zealand artillery, the Battle of Kapyong, and bearing in mind I was not there, they fired something like 10 or 12,000 rounds of 25-pounder ammunition over a 3-day period. Over the whole Korean encounter, they fired over 750,000 rounds of ammunition. Now that's larger and more, a larger quantity than any New Zealand artillery piece did in the Second World War.
Yeah.
So that gives you an idea of how much the Kiwis put into it, and I worked it out the other day. At Kapyong, roughly 400 rounds of 25-pounder were fired out of each of the 24 guns.
So that tells us about the intensity of the battle.
Oh, yes.
Only for 3 years, and so many people killed compared to the Vietnam War. You know, it lasted more than 10 years.
Yeah.
But there are more casualties in terms of the rate. If you consider the time dimension there. But still, it's been known as forgotten war, and in New Zealand history textbook, they don't talk much about the Korean War.
No, which I think is a tragedy. I have given talks at different times.
In the school.
At Anzac parades, which you're probably familiar with.
Yes.
And I have prescribed the Korean conflict. And I think it should be more prominent in New Zealand history. I personally think had the Korean Peninsula been united under the North, it was a stepping stone for communism and right throughout the Pacific.
Exactly.
And I feel that I played my part
Yes.
in doing that, along with, at any given time, there would have been 600 to 1,200 men, Kiwis at a time, but don't forget, we were being rotated. I think the 3rd Battalion Australian Royal Regiment, they would have had 1,000 men, and we were always acted in a union. Now you inquired about our hygiene, our showering. We had shower units, and we would have 3 44-gallon drums strapped together with pipes, shell cases welded in at each on, 2 across the bottom, 2 across the top. And we had what we called a Benghazi burner, which heated the shower. Sometimes it was extremely hot.
Sometimes it's so cold.
Yeah, it depends when the water truck brought the water in.
Exactly.
Pardon me, but we would walk for miles and miles and miles to have a shower. And we were scrupulously clean, as best as we could.
How often were you able to take shower?
1 or twice every 2 weeks.
Every 2 weeks.
We'd be badly done by if we couldn't have a shower every month.
So you must be pretty much smelly all the time. But that's actually pretty good, because other, army soldiers, they never took shower for 18 weeks.
Well, that'd be right.
Yeah.
But their body hygiene was terrible. They break out in sores and ulcers. We had very little trouble like that.
Lucky you.
I think our worst injuries came off the football field if we cut ourselves on the fields because of the excessive nitrogen that was in the soil. Well, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. So that's why we are doing this. We're not just preserving your memory, but we're going to make it, your interview, into curricular resources.
Yeah.
And many teachers in the United States working with my foundation, they analyze this interview and they write into lesson plan. And they make for primary and secondary resources that teachers can use this in the classroom so that they can talk about the war that you fought.
Well, I would like to make a special request that
What is it?
That the New Zealand education system be brought up to speed
Yep.
on that, and that our efforts gave them the privilege to be able to do what they're doing.
Mr. McIntyre, your request will be delivered. I promise you, because
you.
we already published the curricular resources in the United States.
Yeah.
We're going to have another one book coming by the big association in the United States. And now I'm talking to VA office here, Elaine, and your minister, Bernardine McKenzie, and we talked about it. So I am trying to put together teachers here in New Zealand to write lesson plan about the war you fought using these interviews.
Oh, that'll be great. I think if you can do that, my visit here would be worthwhile.
Yeah.
I do.
I'm doing a good job. I'm trying.
Yeah.
It's so silly. So many people being killed. 2 million civilian Korean people were being killed during the war. And 23, as long as I know, the New Zealand Kiwis being killed. 37,000 US soldiers being killed. About 100,000 being killed and wounded. And we don't talk about it.
That's right.
It's a shame.
But on the other side too now, you look at all these kiddies that are being born malnourished and no resources to look after them.
Yeah.
That's terrible.
That's right. So that's what we are trying to do. Any other episode that you want to share with us? I mean, you remember anything particular so that it
but not-
appears in your dream?
But not on that.
Huh? No?
Not on that.
Now I think it's time to invite your daughter to join you, okay?
Yes.
So, please say your name.
Nicole Belinda Ann Robinson,
Rob-
nee McIntyre.
And you are the daughter, right?
Dad's youngest child, yep, and only daughter.
Only daughter. Wow. So,
One of 5.
great to have you both together. And when did you know that your father served in the Korean War?
I think it might have been, I always knew that he was in the army because Dad talked about it a lot, and I suppose he lives by a lot of his army drill sort of things that he's learnt, like pants and shirts had to be pressed properly, and
Yeah.
so we sort of lived
Yeah.
that sort of
Typical
suppose,
fathers.
typical life. But probably I think I might have been about 11 or 12, still at primary school, but in one of my final years at primary school, and I had to do a speech because I used to do postmasters and speech competitions, and the topic I chose was the Korean War, which we didn't study at school. I knew nothing about it, only other than the fact that Dad obviously knew about it, and that was a topic because it was spoken about in our home that I used, and I used that year in my speech competition. And
Ah.
in fact, I found my little cue cards from that speech not that long ago.
Ah.
So that's probably when I learnt more about it, and about that probably when I was about 11 or 12. But if it hadn't been for Dad, I would never have known. Even through all my high school schooling, it was not talked about. In fact,
Not at all.
not at all. Like I would say to my friends, oh, my dad was in the war, and it's like, oh, he's not old enough to have fought in World War II. And I was like, oh, he was in the Korean War, but no one knows or knew what that was. So I did choose that as my speech topic because it was, I suppose, close to our family. But I thought, why doesn't everybody know about this? Like, my dad was injured in the war. Like, Dad spent his 21st birthday in hospital because of his injuries in the Korean War. So how
You
come,
didn't talk about your injury.
so how come, we don't know, and we're not learning about it? So, yeah.
So you are the citizen of New Zealand, and think about the war that New Zealand soldiers been involved.
Yeah. So,
Since the foundation of your country, 1840 or 42 or so, what are the big wars that you fought?
so we learned at school, World War One, World War Two.
Yeah, that's all world wars,
Yeah,
you know.
but we sort of even learnt and touched on the Vietnam War, which I don't actually think New Zealand had very much of any involvement in. But yet,
We did.
We did, but not, yeah.
Yeah, but the Korean War, nothing sort of really. So, but it was. To be fair, I didn't take history during high school, but I know that it wasn't part. I had friends that took it, and it wasn't taught there as well. It was always just World War One and World War Two, really.
I wish that you say to me that you are the history teacher in somewhere in high school here.
No, unfortunately. Well,
Do you
probably
know of
fortunately not.
anybody?
That's a history teacher.
Yeah.
I know teachers, but not history teachers.
Okay.
Yeah. All my friends are all sports education teachers.
That's why I'm doing
Yeah.
this. That's why we are doing this. We have to. I mean, that's your legacy.
Yeah.
You were injured, right? Where were you injured? I know you don't want to talk about it, but
Not me to
where
say.
were you injured?
Oh, the back mainly, wasn't it?
You had a battery.
Oh,
explosion.
yeah.
What?
I forgot about that. No, I honestly did. I had a bank of batteries explode.
Oh. How did it happen?
Well, there was a spark somehow that should never have happened. It wasn't my doing, but a whole bank of batteries exploded, and they comprised of sulfuric acid. The gas liberated was hydrogen, very explosive.
He had
So,
burns
what happened?
on his face.
Face.
You had burns on your face.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, that's why you have some scars here?
No, that was melanoma, that's skin cancer.
Oh, okay.
But that's all cured.
Oh.
Yeah, that's all right.
So you were evacuated to the hospital?
Yep.
Where? In the mesh unit, or did you go to Japan?
No, it was an Indian Ford Field hospital.
I see.
Miraculous men. But the memory out of that, of course, is I was with the New Zealand Army at this time, and the continuous flow of ambulances that came in at night, just non-stop.
Yeah.
But I would say, with respect to the New Zealanders, our fatal casualties were probably less than anybody else, and the degree of professionalism of our soldiers was exemplary. And bearing in mind that they were all volunteers. There were the officers, by and large, were regular army officers seconded to go overseas, and they were all very, very highly experienced men. But there were a lot of guys in the waiting to be sent back to New Zealand to be commissioned to carry on.
So what do you think we can do to challenge the reality that Korean War is not in the history textbook? Nobody talk about it.
I suppose the only thing, that we knew about from the Korean War was MASH, because it was a big TV show over here, but I don't think anyone realised that that was actually based on true events, or until you got a bit older.
Well, it wasn't only them, the Norwegians had one,
Yes.
the Indians
Swedish.
had one, the Canadians had one.
Yeah.
But
We had a dental unit. I don't know definite. I can say those were definite, but the other ones I'm not sure about.
Yeah. There are 6 countries that actually send a medical unit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't do too badly.
You were not bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just think it needs to be part of our history textbooks. It's part of who we are, and New Zealand is a country that gets in and gives a hand everywhere, probably sometimes where we shouldn't. But the fact is that a lot of our, dads and grandparents and that were in the war or knew someone in the war or were affected by the Korean War in some way, shape or form. So I think it's a very important part of our history.
And the sad thing is, what we gave those people the right to protest and go anti-war, anti-this, anti-other things, and blow the soldiers when they come back. Some of those guys came back with very, very deep emotional scars. When I say scars, the biggest one, of course, was post-traumatic stress disorder, and that doesn't appear just like that. It just comes up incipiently over a period of time.
And one day you have a nightmare and yelling and screaming.
Well, I know in my case it wasn't like that. It was just a gradually build up and you become a person separate and different to what you were before.
Exactly.
Very grumpy.
Yeah.
Oh, you can't say that about your father now.
That's why I love to have put together 2 of you.
Look, you've got the loveliest father you've ever had.
Oh.
Just as well as anyone.
Yeah.
We're not promoting the war. We are not warmonger, but we need to learn from this war. What happened? How did it happen? What is the result? And what is the outcome out of it? And what are the problems left to us, right? We are still divided. Well,
I think, sadly, it's going to stay like that for a little while because the North Koreans are the most skillful negotiators in doing nothing that you'll ever encounter. And I think that President Trump is going to find the same thing. Every time they get down to the crunch, they get concessions, but they give nothing. What have they given? They gave you Hyundai cars.
Yeah. So both of them, Trump and Kim Jong-un, are using this moment for their own agenda.
That's right.
Yeah.
Possibly, yes. But I think that the last thing that Kim Il-jung, is it?
Kim Jong-un.
Yeah. Wants is his regime to be exposed to the world, because that'd string him up.
Yeah. That's right. So, whole point is that there are historical importance of the war itself, and there are things that we need to resolve.
Yes.
Because we haven't replaced the war with the peace treaty yet.
No.
So technically at war.
That's right.
Never ended,
Seoul
is
is still in range of the North Korean artillery.
Yeah.
An agent shell will go right into the heart of
Exactly.
Seoul.
And that's never
Only
gonna
40
change.
miles from the DMZ, and they don't need missile. They don't even need a short-range missile. They just need long-range cannon, artillery. And Seoul will be, devastated again.
Oh, the people will run out, they'll be devastated because they're living on the knowledge that can happen.
Yeah.
They can.
That's what we want to talk with the teachers. And so we want to educate our own educators so that they can educate our young generation.
But there's one thing that I learned when I went back was the Korean motto, freedom is not free.
Right.
And I think you've got to keep that no matter where you go, you in particular.
See?
No matter what you do, freedom is not free. And how far and how much are you going to do to keep your freedom? You have to stand up for it.
See, that's why I'm doing this.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we cannot capture that important points. Yes, freedom is not free.
Yeah.
And that's the lesson we need to learn.
No, I think that was the biggest lesson I did learn in 2008, 2009, wasn't it?
Yeah. Dad went back with the New Zealand Defence Force as part of the tour with Mum.
And she was terrified when we went up to the DMZ. She saw we were working on Hill 355.
Hill 355, yes.
Yeah, the one on the left way out there is like a sawtooth. And one of my good friends was killed there doing exactly what I was doing a couple of months after I came home. And a few weeks after that, the ceasefire was pronounced. But the hammering and tonging and the confrontation were going on to the last minute to get that little bit of diplomacy, that important high ground. A lot of men died, and a lot of men need not have died.
Yeah.
Now it's Kaesong, isn't it, where the...
Very close. Kaesong. Yeah, Kaesong is north of Panmunjom.
Oh, no, where the peace talks were...
Panmunjom.
Panmunjom, yeah,
Yes.
because we used to look down on that. And they used to have it marked with searchlights going into the sky so that nobody would do any night bombing. But when I first went over there, the comical things was the North Korean guy, I don't know who he was, but he didn't last long. He used to come over at night in a two-winged monoplane and drop hand grenades around us.
Yeah, right.
So somebody shot him down.
Bad Chuck Charlie. Yeah.
That's him.
Yep.
Bad Check Charlie.
Yep.
So I was there when that was going on. And the boys would say, oh, silly bastard.
Nicole, do you know about modern Korean economy and so on?
Not a huge amount, other than sort of what you hear and see on the television, but I do know that it has come a long way in the last nearly 70 odd years, and it's definitely not the Korea that Dad was living in when all that was going on, and that it's been rebuilt somewhat, but it's still, my dad said lives
You
on
do get
very
attached
much
to a place where you've been fighting.
fine line.
What would you say to your father, loveless father, as a Korean War veteran? As you know about more Korean War, what would you say to him?
I was very proud of him, the fact that that he did that, and that he's still here and he's still fit, and at 88 he's still living on his own, and that he's here as a mentor to my son, who's named after Dad, Heath, and that he can share his knowledge and that with us and with Heath. So we're just, I suppose, we're very, very lucky that Dad came home while he was injured. He's come home in one piece.
One piece.
Yeah.
And that's why we are doing this, to tell your son about the war that his grandfather fought.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And who he was named after.
Yeah, there were some things of note which should not be on that, but I'll talk to you about them afterwards when you stop, because...
I will ask you to say something to Korean people in the context of 70th anniversary of the breakup of the Korean War next year. What would you say to the Korean people?
Stand fast. Remember, freedom is not free. Be prepared to stand up for your principles. Don't be talked out of it. good luck.
Thank you, sir. This has been a great conversation with you across the generation, and especially with your daughter, talking about she didn't learn anything on the Korean War from the school or textbook. And that's the reality that I want to challenge, but I need your help. So let's work together, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you again.
Well, may I say, when you're free, you come out, we'll entertain you, we'll take you around, show you the district.
Thank you.